welcome to this third edition, if you like, of our budget-related discussions brought to you by the Ministry of Finance in partnership with the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, CSBAG, and other partners like URA. And this is part of activities for the budget month, which theme is anchored by emphasizing the role of the citizen in the budget process. Do you understand the budget? Do you understand how it impacts on you? When you hear the minister going to read these things tomorrow but one on Thursday, should you care, or you think, that's their document? And that's what we are here in the studio to discuss. You're going to hear explainers for the next about 2 hours or just thereabout. You're going to hear explainers to this end. So let me today, I normally introduce my guests, but let me do the needful to ask them to introduce themselves. On my left, let me ask you, Kenneth, introduce yourself first and what you do.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Kenneth Mugambe. I work in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development as the Director of Budget. And I guess the title summarizes what I do. So I handle the national budget, you know, essentially from preparing the budget to some extent to execution of the budget, and then of course also monitoring the budget.
Thank you, Kenneth. This is the man that is behind there. You never see him very much, but today we brought him, and the other day we brought him also. So you see him. These are the people who cook and churn things, even as the minister is the one who reads these things. So to Kenneth's left, please introduce yourself, sir.
Good morning. My name is Rubanga Kene Patrick. I work with the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group as a budget policy specialist. CSBAC, our major interest is we walk through the whole budget cycle and get to see how citizens can effectively participate in the budget processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And so Ministry of Finance and CSBAG. CSBAG is a consortium of civil society organizations focused on the budget. They work together to try to cause the trickle down, even to some extent accountability for in the budget. So, gentlemen, welcome. The budget is going to be read on Thursday, and viewers may want to understand what is the general spirit of the budget, what's the direction. It's going to be read, but in the thinking of the making of the budget for next financial year, what was it? Let's start with you, Kenneth.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Are we on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sam. As viewers know, this budget is coming at a time when we have been hit by the COVID pandemic. Actually coming at a time more or less when things had stabilized a bit, but of course we are now experiencing a second wave, as we all know. Yeah. So the budget that has been prepared, which the minister is going to present on Thursday, has tried to address, issues that will help the country to go back on a recovery path. In terms of overall economic recovery, but more specifically in terms of the incomes of the households, businesses, to ensure that businesses, can function, are stimulated to function properly, but also more importantly, addressing the well-being of the population. Yeah. So if you had to summarize it actually, those are the two twin objectives of the budget. Addressing issues to do with incomes of the household and businesses, as well as addressing the well-being of the population, the health of the population, as it were, given the circumstances that we are in.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Patrick, what's your take? The technical man here who does the budget gives us the perspective. From that angle, what do you see as the spirit, as interpreted?
Okay, thank you, Sam. When you look at this upcoming budget that will be read on Thursday, and you get to see what is it government is thinking, and what is it that the government is laying on table for a common person. Yeah. You would see in terms of prioritization and allocation, you'd see much money has been put towards human capital development.
Mm.
That speaks volume, because we're in a state where COVID is hitting the country so hard, and when you see government channeling money towards health and human capital, you really see, yeah, they care for the population, because I believe in that budget there's so much that has been allocated towards COVID vaccines. Then you also look at governance and security as a program.
Yes, it's a
Picking
program.
up quite a chunk of money. That also speaks that government is so focused towards peace and security as one of its core in the coming budget. But as Kenneth mentioned about the overall well-being of the population, you can see something that is coming out about the parish development model.
Yes.
So that's something where government is now focusing its aspiration right at the parish. So to a common person, I think that's what the budget is speaking. We need to really pick more interest around that area. The parish development model, how much is going towards human capital and governance and security.
Okay, I saw. Yeah, and of course issues like agro-industrialization. Probably if we have a chance, we will touch a little bit of those, as we have severally done before. Kenneth, people think that the budget is about the manifesto of the ruling party. How far is that true? And if there are other issues, how do they kind of jump that barrier, if you like, to get into the budget?
Of course, a budget, first and foremost, is the instrument through which any government in power is able to implement its program. So to that extent, the budget must reflect the manifesto of the ruling party.
Yeah.
But of course, as we all know, we also have a national development plan. Now, the spirit of the national development plan in Uganda is to try as much as possible and reflect, our aspirations as a country. That's why we have a national development plan, which is linked to our vision, where we want Uganda to be. Of course, as it says, from a peasant country to a modern, prosperous country.
Yeah.
Then in between, you have 6, NDPs of 5 years each. Now, that is, the overarching, framework for Uganda as a country. So, of course, the expectation is that once you have established an overarching framework, which reflects the aspirations of Ugandans, actually irrespective of the party positions, then when a party comes to power, a party comes every 5 years.
Yeah.
So the party looks at, what is in the overarching framework, the National Development Plan, and of course it defines its own priorities. But by and large, you'll find actually that the party manifesto is largely aligned to the National Development Plan.
Yeah.
It is anchored on the National Development Plan. So to that extent, there is no contradiction in saying that the budget reflects the aspirations of the manifesto. Because the budget is the instrument that the party uses to, on an annual basis, to implement its manifesto.
Okay.
Yes. And if you go back over the years, you can clearly see this. Because whenever government pronounces, for example, a policy, say, on universal primary education, then of course you put resources in the budget to ensure that you implement universal primary education.
Okay.
If, for example, like now, government has a policy of ensuring that we have a health facility, per sub-county, and the instrument through which they can implement that is definitely the budget. Not, of course, necessarily in 1 year, but progressively, so that you have a plan, as we have now actually done, because over the last 5 years, we have almost ensured that there is a health facility practically in every sub-county. We have a few, which are, still have gaps, but more or less we are on track to ensure that we achieve that.
Okay.
So there is definitely a very clear relationship between the manifesto of the NRM in this case and the national budget.
Let me stay with you a bit. I think if I saw correctly the analysis, the NDP2, the achievement, the alignment was probably around 80%, or there was some shortfall in terms of total alignment.
Yes.
What happens in those situations? We want just the viewers to understand that, okay, I'm following NDP, and there is the budget and there is the manifesto. Sometimes you find that there is a shortfall in alignment over the 5 years.
Yes.
What happens in those situations?
Okay, first of all, the alignment of, let's talk about the alignment of the plan and the budget.
Yeah.
Because I think that is actually what is very, very, very critical. A plan is done at a point in time, one point in time, expecting that the situation, based on assumptions you have made, expecting the situations to be based on to be in line with assumptions you have made over the 5 years.
Absolutely.
If you look at the current trajectory, for example, NDP2 and then of course NDP3, I'm not so sure that when the National Development Plan was made, there was any person who had the magic to imagine that there's going to be COVID.
Definitely
in
not.
2019. But when you are making assumptions, preparing a plan, one, of course you have assumed certain parameters and you have done projections.
All will be well.
Yeah, of course. Maybe you can even factor in some uncertainty, but there are some situations you cannot predict and project.
Absolutely.
Now, the difference between a plan and a budget is that a budget is much more realistic because a budget, because it is a one-year plan, it is prepared in that space of where there is much more predictability of what is going to happen.
12 months.
12 months. So you are able to project actually. And as we say in economics, of course, in the long run, we are all dead. That's why we cannot actually project the long run.
Yeah.
Because only God knows what is going to happen in the long run. But definitely, like in the 12 months, you can easily project what is going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of alignment between a plan, that is one of the, normally that's one of the challenges. Because when you prepare a plan, you assume that you are going to achieve, say, a rate of growth of maybe 7%. Okay? But of course, the COVID pandemic comes and your rate of growth goes 3%.
Yeah.
So it actually becomes 50% of what you had projected in the plan. You project in the plan that your revenues, domestic revenues, are going to be at maybe 20 trillion or 21 trillion as we had projected in the financial which is coming to an end.
Yeah.
COVID comes and of course hits your revenues
Hard.
and you have a revenue shortfall of over 2 trillion. Now, that itself actually causes a misalignment. Because what you projected in terms of your macroeconomic situation automatically changes on account of the things which you could not predict as a human being.
Okay.
But overall, that said and done, there has been a high degree of alignment between what was projected in the plan and also what we have actually done in the budget. The key benchmark, the benchmark actually for the plan is about 70%. Because they also leave room for things which are not predictable.
Moving variables.
Exactly. So as long as the budget, as long as you can, align up to 70%, you have actually achieved a great degree of alignment.
Okay.
And over the years, we are now, this year, the budget which has just been presented, we are at about 62%. Okay. And we have moved from about 57%. So we are actually on a good track to ensure that there is greater alignment. And then, of course, the fact that we are implementing what we call program-based budgeting.
Yes.
The plan has come up with programs. So we are going to ensure that all the interventions in the institutions are driven by the interventions which have been identified in the plan. Because the plan up front has come up with interventions. Yeah. So if you are health, the idea is that you must implement these interventions. So now those are predetermined now. They are defined already. So we are going to ensure that institutions implement those interventions and resources are allocated to those interventions. And of course that will foster a higher degree of alignment between the budget and the plan.
Okay.
Yes.
And that goes to putting the money where the mouth is.
That's a
common phrase.
Because remember, as I said, the plan, planning, my background is actually planning, a planner. That's how I started my career as a planner. And I used to do the Poverty Eradication Action Plan. So you start by setting a target. And then, of course, you look at what is required. So in a way, a plan is a very nice document. Because actually, and if you assume all factors actually constant and everything goes as planned, then it's very nice, actually. Because it actually shows you what you're expected to do, to be able to move from point A to point B and then C and then D. Yeah. But of course, as I said, unfortunately, life is not a very straight line. So as you move on, things happen and then you have to re-examine your plan. But that's the whole reason why actually on an annual basis you prepare a budget. Because a budget now helps you to see where do we need to make some adjustments. Still continue on that objective that we set ourselves, but given the prevailing circumstances now. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Kenneth, I'll come back to you on that factor. Patrick, Kenneth, after the NDP and the government does the budget, Patrick, but say human development is the key issue now in terms of the money being consumed, and that is health and things like education. So maybe in there is payment of teachers, building of schools, and yet at the end of the day, Patrick, we realize that the impact may fall a little bit below. The money is put there, the intent is there, but then we don't get the expected result. What do you think happens?
Okay, thank you, Sam. I think, as Kenneth put it out, it's so clear. Once we are at the planning stage, the assumptions that guide in our planning. And now, when it comes to actualization of the budget, making sure whatever aspirations we had set out in the plan is actually implemented and actualized. There are so many challenges that come in along the way. Let's use an example of the human capital. We could have planned maybe the targets are set, maybe we want to improve literacy. We want, courtesy of that, you want to see we have a functioning school. By functioning school, we mean we have teachers who are well equipped. We have even the pupils or learners who are willing to go to school. We have the required consumables in that school.
Books,
chalks, name it. But now, the challenge that arises along the way is the inadequacy of resources. Yeah, we could have planned maybe to allocate a given school. Let's look at the current capitation grant. What government can afford is what government is offering. But the question is what government offering enough to ensure that our learners benefit so much from the education? The question is no, because the resources are inadequate. Now, once citizens again knocked onto government and say, yes, you're offering us such a service, but the quality is wanting, government always has a fallback position. Government will tell you, yes, the quality is wanting, but we don't have the resources. Remember, resources are inadequate all through, because if you look through how much are Ugandans really collecting in terms of taxes and how much pressures are we putting on the other side to demand for services. So you really see the mismatch. Not so much is put, but the demand, it's really high. So we need to see a balance. How we should manage expectations from citizens. Much as government has that mandate, yes, true. But as citizens, what is our role? Because there are certain roles that citizens can play better than government.
And the theme is saying role, continue.
Yes, so, for example, someone is supposed to go to school, but as a parent, have we provided the basics, uniforms? Have we given them food? Because there are children who go to school, and because of hunger, they drop out.
That's true.
And we all can't close our eyes and say, yes, government has to provide such to each and every learner. Yes, there are limits. So also as citizens, what role do we play? So as civil society, we have always been engaging the common person and try to open up their minds beyond government. What role are you playing as a citizen to support? Because once we don't play our roles, actually we lose the powers to demand.
Okay, there's Patrick, what's expected of me as a parent? That one I get. But Kenneth here allocates the money. It goes to the sub-county. Or now maybe it will go to the parish.
Which one? No, the one of the school goes to the school directly.
Imagine. Now there's a health center.
Yes, it goes there.
And there's no medicine in it. And that's not the new story we're talking about here. How do we fix that? Okay, there's a building, but there's no medicine. How do we fix that so that the money makes sense? The money the minister reads here makes sense down there. And I'm still with you, Patrick. I don't think Kenneth can fix that issue. But from civil society, okay, we'll come back to you. Let's go to Patrick. What happens? What do we need to fix so that the medicine that has been given, allocated money up here, is there in the hospital?
Okay, let's use that example of medicine. We have the national medical stores that's mandated to do the last mile delivery of medicines right up to the last point. Now, there are challenges that we face when it comes to service delivery, which as citizens, we, as civil society, we have always been re-echoing. One, corruption. It's really something which is so pronounced. Yes, medicines could be brought, but the question is, of that medicine that has been brought to that health facility, how much of that reaches the common person in the community. Some of that is already stolen by these health workers who are employed by government to work. So once you have lost a certain percentage of that, definitely you are not going to get the required services. Yes, we appreciate the systems that are being put in place to streamline and ensure all is not lost. But unless we close those leakages, people will not benefit much from what is being offered by government.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Kenneth, you said that you had, I was trying to go for Patrick there, but you said, Kenneth, you can handle even at your level of allocation. So tell us how.
Okay, I wanted to touch on two things which you've talked about. Of course, there is the first issue is whether the resources are enough or not enough. Then, of course, the second question is whatever amount of money you send, is it put to the proper use? And I think that's where people should take interest. In whatever circumstances, the resources will not be enough. Okay? Of course,
never enough.
Based on the resource envelope, we definitely need to provide more resources. Like now, we provide about 17,000 shillings per pupil for primary schools for capitation grant. But of course, we would need maybe 30,000 to be able to deliver reasonable services. But the question is, when you send the 17,000, is it actually put to good use? And I think the question you're asking is, how do we ensure that that 17,000 is put to good use?
To good use.
Yes. And to some extent, that's why we, even us as Ministry of Finance, because we are, the public sector, we have a number of mechanisms that we put in place to ensure that these resources are released timely, they reach where they are supposed to go. But you realize that cannot just be a responsibility of the government alone. As a government, yes, we have a duty to ensure that once I allocate this money, it reaches the end point.
It's your intent.
It is my intention, and I try as much as possible to do it actually. Every single day when I wake up, that's my intention.
Yeah.
I have released the money. First of all, have I released money timely? I ensure that the money has gone timely. Because if it doesn't go timely, then there's a problem. If I have released it on time, is it actually reaching? And we have tried to put in place all those mechanisms. Ensure money is released timely. And actually, like I was telling you, we have a mechanism which ensures that actually when we click a button, the money reaches every school. In one go, it goes straight to the school. It doesn't go to the district headquarters. It doesn't go to...
No middleman.
No, there's no middleman. Because actually that was also a cause of delays. So we say that it has to remove that so that money goes where it is intended to go. To the, frontline service delivery point, which is a school, a health center, whatever it is. Now, once it reaches there, of course, as government, we have a number of mechanisms. But the point I want to emphasize is actually the role of the citizen, which is in line with the theme that we are discussing.
For this year, yes.
Because unless a citizen takes interest to understand, because at the end of the day, the services which are being delivered are for the interest of the citizen. The child who is in school is actually your child as a citizen. So, and in some cases, in some areas, where parents pick interest or citizens pick interest, the quality of the services actually improves.
I think so.
I have an example. There is somewhere where, in some locality where a community road was being done, okay, under the Uganda Road Fund. So Uganda Road Fund provided money, about 100 million shillings. But the citizens actually demanded. They said, first of all, we want to understand how much money you have. When the officials of government went to that locality, they said, we want to understand how much money you have. But also we want to understand how you are going to use this money.
The citizens are demanding.
The citizens are demanding. So it actually forced these officials to go on a board, on a blackboard. Say, yes, we have 100 million shillings. We are going to buy maram of so much money. We are going to spend so much money on fuel. We are going to spend so much money on labor. But at the end of the day, I can guarantee you the quality of that road and the efficiency with which the monies were used was extremely high. Because the citizens took interest in understanding, because they know the money, first of all, is theirs, and they are the beneficiary of the services.
And it has been brought.
So in my opinion, because whatever you do, like we have a budget monitoring unit, okay, in the Ministry of Finance. And of course, it tries to physically visit projects. But there is no way you can have all the human resource you need to visit every single
more than 100 districts and
176 local governments. How many schools you cannot.
Now it's going to be parishes.
And parishes. So that's why the role of the citizen is very, very important. And of course, as we know, in places where there's higher civic education and interest by the citizens, to engage government and understand, you know, the quality of the services normally improves.
Okay.
That's really the point I wanted to make.
Patrick, Kenneth has labored the role of the citizen, and that's what you are trying to labor. Okay, we have agreed the citizen needs to play a role, and he gave an example.
Yeah.
How do we replicate that model? Where these guys are saying, tell us about this road. Break down. Now we are waiting to see. How do we replicate that model realistically? You are in civil society. Government has planned budget monitoring unit, but they can't achieve absolutely what they want. So tell us, we are looking for solutions. How can we empower the citizen in that model where they demand? I know you are going to say about information, but how?
Okay, thank you, Sam. I must appreciate what Kenneth has really explained. And let me just answer that question from a point of experience. As civil society budget advocacy group, we have been monitoring budget performance right at lower local governments.
Yeah.
Now, where we have really actively monitored, we have seen also tremendous improvement in service delivery because duty bearers are more accountable and responsible.
Yeah.
Now, what really needs to be done is what we need to adopt is the participatory approach to service delivery. Once that is brought on board, we shall see changes.
Break that down.
Now, the participatory approach, that means there is involvement of citizens when we come to priority settings, right from the grassroots.
Yeah.
Because I'm imagining you coming up with a school, for example, to set up in a given sub-county.
Yeah.
That may not be the actual priority needs of that community. Their needs could have been water. So we need to involve citizens as much as possible, right at when the priority settings is taking place.
Okay.
That comes right from the parish. However, we have faced challenges in areas where even the parish development committees don't meet. Priorities that are presented at the sub-counties during the budget conferences, most of them don't speak to the needs of the people.
They are not connected
They
downwards.
are not connected because the sub-county team never gave an opportunity to the common
Parish.
person to bring on board their priorities that they want to see in the budget. That continues all through up to the district budget conferences. So you see, whatever is now being put in the district budgets, most cases don't speak to the priority needs of the citizens. So unless we improve on that participatory model, where citizens are brought on board, they get to interact with the duty bearers and lay bare, like, these are our needs, these are the things that we want to see in the budget, and they'll be willing to monitor because we have engaged citizens to a point where we empower them, we work with them. Every quarter they monitor the budget. We go to schools, we go to health facilities to see, are these institutions displaying budget information on the notespot? It's a raid. They get to know. So once citizens are equipped and they know the roles they should play, trust me, services, definitely, the quality will improve.
Okay.
So once that participatory approach is lost, there are districts where it's not so pronounced, and definitely you will get to see all this mess you're seeing already. But where citizens are fully engaged, they put these duty bearers on check, and wastage is also reduced. So I think the best approach that government should really focus on is the participatory model.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, absolutely.
No,
In fact,
no,
I was coming to you to ask about whether in the budget that is coming with the parish model there is a fix to that issue.
No, there is, of course. We agree to participatory approaches in terms of priority setting, monitoring, etc. We have totally no objection. But of course, what you need to realize is that development, first of all, is a very complex situation. And what does it entail? It entails you being able to conceptualize your challenges, your problems, actually, as a country, as a people, and then be able to come up with solutions to address those things. And then over time, of course, transition from low income, middle income, advanced, etc. Now, those things of participatory are good, but of course, depending on the level of development, I think they make more sense depending on the level of development. So our thinking is, for countries like ours, you must have a combination of the two. Because essentially what he's talking about is, either the top down or bottom up. Okay,
He's explaining what you said earlier, the mode of that village,
Exactly.
the Maram Road.
Yes, actually the village I was talking about has higher levels of civic education. And that's why they were able to demand, because they know their rights. Okay, they are able to demand. But you go to a different village where that model will not work. Because actually probably they are not even aware of their rights. So you need to bring them to a certain level, and then they can actually, then they are able. So and that's the point I'm actually moving towards. The point I want to make is you need a situation where, in some cases actually, where these citizens here need some kind of mentorship and guidance, where they must be guided to be able to understand actually what is in their best interest.
Yeah.
Not necessarily allowing them a free hand to determine what they want. So at some point you realize actually they need some guidance. And that's really what I think would actually help.
Okay.
So the two approaches are not mutually exclusive. So you'd have...
Before I leave you, Kenneth, we talked
approaches.
about the last discussion.
Yeah.
We talked about that amount of money which is going to mindset change. Is that the money which is going to do those things in the parish?
Mindset, yes. But actually, if you look at the mindset change, is the money for mindset change is actually supposed to help in community mobilization.
Yeah.
You see, every parish has a community development assistant. And these are the guys actually who, like the president says, who are supposed to be spreading the gospel of development. Because they are in the communities, they understand the problems of the communities, because they are supposed to be trained actually in that kind of thinking. You know, and understand the problems the communities are facing and help the communities to come up with solutions. And then of course also kind of do some bit of monitoring of the different programs which are being implemented in government to ensure that the communities take advantage of those programs. So the mindset change actually is along those lines to ensure that you have community development assistants or community mobilizers who are in the communities who help. Okay, if people need extension services, okay, you'll be able to identify, you know, what is the weakness in this extension system. If people are not taking children to school, like you are saying, because in some cases, and especially like now, where we have had this situation of COVID, you look at the studies that are happening. A lot of children have actually probably will never go back to school. Okay, so you need, and for some of the parents, that is fine, because for them, real parents they try to be rational, just like all of us, because this guy is weighing against now sending this child back to school or maintaining him or her as a child labor. And for him, in his rush, in his thinking, he thinks it's better to keep him at home.
At that level.
At that level. So you need now this community development assistant. And that is the mindset change I'm talking about. So you need the community, somebody who would actually come and explain to this person to change his mindset. That even though this child has missed school for 2 years, but in the long run, it is in the interest of your family and the child that this child actually goes back. Or even there was a study which was done about the number of underage girls who have become pregnant because of this COVID situation. I'm sure in some families, their immediate reaction is, since this girl became pregnant,
get married.
Get married. But you can imagine the kind of impact it will have on that child and his future, the generation, which, you know, future generation. So that's why you need those people who are able to kind of help the communities, you know, to change their mindset. And that is one aspect of the parish model.
And I do hope, Kenneth, that now with the capital development program taking up all this money, there's an element of COVID, the COVID realities. Those girls you're talking about, the boys who are not going back to school, the early learners who are stunted almost. I hope there is such a thing, because if we go forward as if COVID has not happened, we have a problem.
Absolutely. You see, COVID is like coming out of a war situation. I mean, if you take the example of when we came from, when there was a conflict in northern Uganda, or even when we had all the challenges we had in Karamoja. You know what happened in Karamoja? Because traditionally, the bulk of the children were not going to school. So what government had to do was set up alternative education methods of education. We had one called complementary opportunities for primary education in Karamoja. Complementary opportunities for primary education in Karamoja. And the whole essence of that was to look at the unique situation of that was in Karamoja and tailor the education system to address that situation. So, like you're saying, I think what the challenge will be for government, especially these institutions like education, is to look at those areas which have been impacted on by COVID. Like the example I gave. Because if you find in a particular part of the country, there has been a lot of, early child pregnancies. There has been a lot of dropout of school.
Yes.
You must devise a strategy that is going to tackle that problem. So you cannot assume that the general policy will address those specifics. So I agree with what you are saying. At the end of the day, actually, because COVID has posed the specific challenges.
Absolutely.
So the institutions must look at those specific problems which have been, posed by COVID and devise strategies that address them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Patrick, before I leave, the parish model has come up in every discussion of the budget I have been involved in. I don't even have to bring it up or what, it just pops up. It seems the big deal.
Yes.
The parish development model seems to be hopped in as a vehicle to fix many challenges at a social level. And did you know who is going to lead the parish development? OWC. Do you think that will help? OWC is going to be leading the parish development question, that model. What's your assessment of that? And that's the reality coming to the citizens, by the way.
Okay, I must say parish development model is something not new.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not new. Let's first start from that point. It's not something that is new, because I believe even the priority settings initially were being started right from the parish. However, this time we are seeing much more emphasis where government is really pushing resources really down to the parish.
Yeah.
Yes, in terms of mandate, who is best suited to lead the model, I think we needed to focus more on the local governments instead of really giving that mandate to OWC.
To the army.
Because OWC, yes, initially they have been engaging the communities in terms of wealth creation.
Yeah.
But if you look through the parish development models, the 7 pillars, there are certain elements that OWC is not so strong in it. So it would be prudent of government to leave that mandate to the Ministry of Local Government to strongly lead and utilize all their channels, the decentralization channels that are already in place. So it becomes easy, because by the time you bring in another external entity of government to come in, definitely there is going to be conflict. Fights are going to set in between the mainstream local governments and with OWC. So such kind of fights definitely will impact on the success of the parish development model. So I think government needs to reflect back and push it through to Ministry of Local Government. I think they're better placed to run the parish development model.
That's advisory.
I want to explain that point because in terms of the structure of the parish development model, the lead institution, at the preparatory stage, Ministry of Finance actually took the lead, at the preparatory stage. And the parish model, like he's saying, is not new. Even if you talked about this conceptualization. No, this conceptualization was first done in 2007. 2007 of the parish model. But for some reason, of course, it didn't take off. Now, in terms of the structure, the lead institution is Ministry of Local Government.
Okay. We need those clarifications.
It is, I'm clarifying it today. The lead institution for parish model is Ministry of Local Government.
Okay.
Government has also set up a cabinet subcommittee, which is now chaired by the Minister of Finance as of now. So there are two key institutional arrangements that have been set up. The execution, the implementation of the model is led by Ministry of Local Government. The financing of the model is led by the Ministry of Finance.
Yes.
And that's why there is a cabinet subcommittee that is chaired by the Minister of Finance. A subcommittee of cabinet which reports to cabinet and His Excellency the President. So whatever role OWC has, OWC would be an actor like all these other institutions, like any other stakeholder, because they actually sit on the task force that we have and on the steering committee. So I thought I should explain that. But in terms of the actual execution, it is actually following the decentralized government framework. That's why in the budget which the minister is going to present on Thursday, one of the first actions that we are going to take is to recruit parish chiefs for the parishes which have no chiefs. Actually, there's about three or four things that we are going to do.
Before October.
Yes, exactly. Okay, like the preconditions for implementation. One, we have to make sure we recruit the chiefs.
Yeah.
Okay, that is number one. Number two, we are giving money to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to do data collection, because you cannot plan for a parish unless you notice the conditions in the parish. We are going to provide money for mindset change, and then we are providing money for financial inclusion. Okay, which is the fund, the parish development fund, which will be at the parish, which people can access for economic activities, and it will be a revolving fund. So whatever money that we'll be putting in, that money will not be coming back to the treasury.
No,
it will actually keep revolving in the community. And that's why we actually almost we are sure that over a period of time, you are going to see a huge increase of these resources, which can be accessed, down by the communities themselves. Because now, for the first time, these resources will go to a level, a unit, which is nearer, the households, nearer the people. Yes.
Very good. And let me tell you my experience. In just a space of 2 weeks, with the budget engagements in the studio and even outside, we just had one on Sunday.
Yes.
I have heard of information about this model coming up piece by piece.
Okay.
And I'm trying to complete the picture myself. Imagine me. That begs to be that I think you need to educate.
Okay.
Because this is an instrument of government's goodwill.
Yes.
To empower the people down there, but people may not get it. Imagine we're on NTV and many people may not even be watching TV in the villages. So that means that Minister of Finance, maybe now you have, not finance only, local government. You have work cut out, and maybe civil society. To explain this animal that is coming, because it's going to come.
We are actually coming up with a communication strategy, working with Minister of Local Government. We had a workshop actually yesterday, on Monday at Hotel Africana. We have prepared guidelines, how, first of all, to explain the whole concept of the parish model, how the resources will be done, the 7 pillars, what is expected of the 7 pillars, the governance structure. So we have actually prepared that. So I think, like you're saying, what is remaining now is to start explaining and communicating that information. So we are going to take advantage of the media to ensure that we explain this information.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. Let's move on to something else. Kenneth, I'm still with you a little bit. Cutting consumptive expenditure. And viewers, this thing called consumptive expenditure, government says this is just consuming. If it was food, it's just eating. So they are cutting that expenditure, which they think is just consuming, and it's not adding any development value, if you like. So can you first tell us, how much are you cutting? Where are you cutting going forward? The SMEs, private sector needs to know that, I'm not going to be looking there.
So, okay. Now, the issue of consumptive expenditure actually came up when we did the budget of 2019-2020, last year's budget. And of course, you realize that's a time when there was also the emergence of COVID and the need to have, these measures. We worked with a number of stakeholders, and on account of the circumstances we were in, it became apparent that there was some expenditure which naturally we were not going to incur. First of all, we stopped traveling abroad.
Where do you travel when there's sickness?
Exactly.
Also, the logic
if you ask my colleagues in the Ministry of Finance, every year, people would be going to Washington, to attend the annual World
IMF
Bank
and World Bank meeting.
IMF meeting. Personally, I've never been there, so don't ask me.
Soon you will be there.
So now, on account of COVID, you are not going to go to Washington. Whenever we would be negotiating for these projects, in some instances, we would actually go fly abroad. These days, actually, we negotiate on Zoom. We have completed all the negotiations for all these projects you hear about, including the $1 billion IMF funding. Nobody left Uganda. Actually, we were not even leaving our offices, leave alone leaving Uganda. We were on Zoom in our offices. The IMF people, some are in their office here in Rwenzori, the others are in US, and we actually manage it. So we actually found that it actually works and it is doable. So those are some of the expenditures that naturally we have actually had to move from those areas to the more deserving areas, including actually traveling inland. Because now, how many of us actually now travel inland? How many workshops and seminars are happening in hotels? Practically, there are no workshops and seminars which are happening. So on account of that, you find you have actually saved money for traveling abroad, for traveling inland, you have saved money on fuel,
Yeah.
you have saved money on seminars and workshops, and of course then you need to channel money in the different areas where you need the money to contribute to national development.
Okay.
So overall we have cut about 800 billion
Okay.
over the period of money which has been moved, from what you call consumptive
Yeah.
to these other areas. Of course, I should also add that it's not necessarily true that all consumptive expenditure is actually bad.
Please clarify. Because people are thinking, these people just
No,
came for us.
if you think of budget monitoring as an immediate example, what are you spending on? To be able to monitor the budget across the country, you need to spend money on fuel.
You need to move.
You need to travel. So you actually need somebody to be able to have those resources and move and confirm that the government programs are actually being, if you are talking of road maintenance, where are you spending the money? Road maintenance money, in the theory, can be looked at as consumptive actually, because actually you buy fuel, you pay labor, all those things.
Yeah.
So we have been trying to explain to the public and to our colleagues, even in civil society, that you need to balance between what you call consumptive and productive expenditure, because consumptive expenditure actually complements productive expenditure. You need a certain level of consumptive expenditure. If you think of,
I'm very happy to hear that.
Think about agriculture. If you think of research, what is in research? Research, actually, the bulk of the money is spent on those consumptive items.
Traveling, looking,
of course,
sleeping.
because that's research. If you think of extension services, what is extension services? So if you go in this thinking of you need to cut consumptive expenditure, actually at the end of the day, you end up also undermining the very productive programs you're trying to promote, because actually you might end up actually cutting those consumptive expenditure which are impacting on the development programs. So that is our approach, and that is the message we have been sending out. Yes, we need to minimize our wasteful expenditure, actually as we call it wasteful, whatever is seen as wasteful, or the expenditure which is not needed, especially like now in these circumstances. But you need to ensure that you have some degree of consumptive expenditure which complements the productive expenditure.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me give an illustration, and Patrick, I'm coming to you. We interviewed somebody in Nasa Road, and what do? They provide stationery to government, and then that leads into things like making gift packs for end of year, whatever you can imagine. And they're saying ever since they cut, now COVID also, we are on our knees. Let me ask Patrick, would you deem the giving of gifts by government and diaries, and yet it is, with hindsight, supporting an SME, would we deem that wasteful?
Yes.
Even here we can find solutions in the studio, apparently, Kenneth. Yeah, go on, Patrick.
Okay, thank you, Sam. I think the way you have brought it out, there's a thin line, yes. To us, we look at it as something which is wasteful, because much as that common person on Nasa Road was really relying on the diaries, but what would that man have done in government? Assuming,
because they pay tax, by the way.
Yeah, they pay tax, true. But look at, for example, if maybe the total cost of printing diaries in government institutions maybe amounts to maybe 100 million shillings. And today a direction comes, going forward we shall not be printing diaries. True. That 100 million would be channeled to another productive area that would generate and benefit a multitude of Ugandans. Than us looking at maybe 100 traders on Nasa Road who could have lost their source of livelihood because they were dependent on.
They have families.
Yes, but you see, let's look at the bigger picture. Beyond the 100 people, the alternative, where they're channeling that 100 million to, is what matters now. Because we have been talking all through, government is short of adequate resources.
That's true.
To really put in productive sectors and implement and on other projects which are critical. But now if government has come up with a policy and say, let's cut on some of these wasteful expenditures, which is not like they cannot do without a diary, there are alternatives to that. So to us it's a positive. So let this common person look beyond that, beyond their self, and see. Their biggest question should be, yes, you have cut this. Where are you channeling that money? Put more interest there. I think
Does it come back to me somehow?
Yes, that's where our focus should be. Yeah. How best are they using that money that they have saved from that wasteful expenditure?
Goodness, the man at Nasser Road, does that money come back to him somehow? Let me say just 100 million. And all these people who do diaries, it's a small SME, it has been sizable. They have paid their tax, paid their rent, paid school fees, and by policy, it's chopped. Does it eventually come back to me? Let me say just 100 million. Let's just give these people comfort if possible.
I think the key question is, because as I said, there's some degree of consumptive expenditure, which is justifiable. Even in terms of the economic impact, actually, like the example you are giving of the guy at Nasser Road, because when this man, when government buys, the diary from the guy at Nasser Road, prints them, of course, there's a whole multiplier effect that happens around it. The jobs it has created, it's actually a lot if you think about it. So the key question is, of course, if it is abused, and I think for me that is actually where we get concerned as Ministry of Finance. And actually, if you think about it, if you remember, in December last year, we actually took action where we said, because of the situation we are in, okay, let's scale down on gift hampers for Christmas. Because we know, yes, we need gift hampers, but we are in a bad situation that we can actually sacrifice this Christmas, do without gift hampers. So for me, that is actually the key question. So in normal circumstances, as long as there is no abuse, I think it actually makes sense to spend some degree of money on those things because of the economic impact they create in terms of the multiplier effect I have talked about.
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting. So there are those people. Sorry, I stuck on that question because we just interviewed people.
Yes.
And these are the real guys. And I know government is the biggest.
That's we are not a real.
I'm qualifying the word real. Okay. We are going for the break. We'll come back and discuss hit the road running to read that document. Of course, Kenneth in the studio here they have already prepared with his team that document, and the minister will have to come in, get familiar, peruse, unless it is the old minister, to present it to the country. Our discussions are anchored by the fact that the citizen needs to know about the budget, because either they know it or not, or they acknowledge or not, it affects you as a citizen. And that's why we have my panelists in the studio, Kenneth Mugambe, Director Budget, Minister of Finance, and Mr. Patrick Rubanga-Kene from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. And we have been trying to thresh down several issues in that document. The document is full of numbers and things. But here we try to make sense of the most important things, if we can, that are going to affect you even as far as your household. We want to continue our discussion. Budget challenges. When COVID started last year, people had a hope, okay, vaccine. Vaccine came, and there has been a pickup in terms of people looking for the job. But all of a sudden, we have some kind of a lockdown again, a second one. Before the first one was lifted entirely, we are back in a second one. And the president talked about taxis and said, be careful, markets, be careful. If you don't in 1 week, I'll come back and tighten. So the lockdown is still with us. It's not only physical, but also psychological for the economy and the business. And this is the time for the budget. So we want to discuss what are the challenges we are glaring at now that this animal called COVID is still lingering. Let me start with Patrick.
Okay, thank you, Sam. I think what is really a challenge that we shall face when it comes to implementation of this upcoming budget, critical is COVID. COVID-19 has really distorted everything, and it makes me sad when we are seeing another wave setting in, because when the economy was open, because from the previous lockdown, there was some relief. Trade resumed, but now we are seeing another lockdown clearing. So COVID is going to be one huge challenge that we need to factor in as we implement this budget, because one, COVID is going to impact so much on revenue mobilization.
Absolutely.
Remember, we need that money to support and fund those key priorities that we have in the budget.
Yeah.
And if you look at how URA has been performing pre-COVID and during COVID, you'll see URA has not been in position to hit the target. And with another lockdown looming, we are seeing, to me, I say URA not meeting.
It's already here by Patrick.
No, it's still mild, but once we go to that real one where we totally shut down, it's really going to impact on revenue. So as such, the projection is not so positive. We are going to lose so much in terms of revenue, and once revenues are down, we shall not have that resource we need to fund the budget. Another challenge that I see, which we need government to act so fast, is the duplication of functions.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, we have so many entities that are doing almost a similar mandate. Yes, government has come out to say, yes, they're going to rationalize, but the question is, when should it really be done? To us, we believe...
You want people to lose jobs in COVID, Patrick?
No.
Sorry, I'm just quipping there.
It's not like I'm advocating for job loss. But let's look at what do we stand to benefit as a country if we rationalize these agencies. Kenneth is here, he can allude to the fact that this is something that should have been done as of yesterday.
Yeah.
You see, we have created so many administrative units. We have so many other agencies of government carrying out a similar mandate. And on one side, we don't have that much revenue to support them.
Yeah.
So what can be done best is to cut on expenditure. So that we come to a level where we can afford. We have a sizable government that we can support, and the bulk of the money that we shall be collecting is rechanneled to other key priorities.
So you have given us the challenge, revenue, and prescribed the solution. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
this is a debate. It's a discussion, and we're tending towards solutions. But sorry, I cut you short. You're still.
Yeah, another thing that we need to really tighten the leakages. Because corruption, it's a huge cancer that is eating us up as a country. And we may not see this budget achieve what it intends to achieve if corruption is not adequately addressed. Because remember, when we started the discussion, we were talking about how a common man gets the drugs, the health facilities, how the schools get the required consumables. Some of these are lost courtesy of corruption.
Absolutely.
The shoddy work that we have on our roads. We have borrowed so much money to invest in infrastructure, but part of this money is lost through corruption. So until we tighten on those leakages, the budget is going to really face a huge challenge.
I can't say that what I saw in Kololo on the grounds is actually corruption, but if you go to Kololo on the grounds, you look at the tarmac. I don't know how long it has been done, but it is already going. There's somebody who almost fell in a hole there in that Kololo grounds. We were walking, almost fell in the hole because somehow you see the cement was not put in the holes. And that addresses what you are talking about, Patrick. Kenneth, this is not to make you uncomfortable. I'm a journalist. I saw that thing. I really saw it. Okay. And it's not the problem of you who allocated the money or whoever is in charge. No, it's somebody who did not do the work properly. And those are leakages. Let me come to you, Kenneth. He has touched revenue issues. Give us a deeper look. You sit where you sit, you do the budgets, you also follow the outlooks, maybe medium term and so on. What are you facing with this COVID lingering like this?
One of the major worries for somebody in the Ministry of Finance is naturally the impact on the economy. Because many of the things we are talking about arise out of that. Because if the major sectors of the economy are not operating and functioning, which is actually what we saw and which is what we are likely to see, depending on how long the second wave goes on, that is a very worrying situation. Because where you projected, as I said earlier on, rates of growth of 6%, you might end up getting anywhere between 3% or whatever, depending, of course, on the magnitude of the situation. So that's our biggest worry. Then, of course, once you have your economic growth suppressed, then your revenues, domestic revenue, is a function of growth.
Yeah.
Then you are not going to get the domestic revenues. Now, if you do not get the domestic revenues, what is the alternative?
Borrowing.
Either you cut expenditure or you borrow straight to be able to maintain the services that you are delivering. So when you borrow, then of course you are debt situations. So as a result of COVID, you are likely to see a challenge, of course, of a worsening, debt situation. And then of course all the other things which come with it. Because imagine if sectors like tourism and all those things,
they remain
where they are. Yeah. And imagine the number of people who are engaged in tourism activities, who are employed. So all those people are likely to become unemployed.
Absolutely.
Imagine the number of small and micro scale, small scale businesses, okay, who get affected. I was reading a story about, the transport sector because of the partial lockdown. Of course, imagine people who are engaged in transport, especially across the districts. Yeah. They are definitely going to park the buses.
All these buses are, yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, as you park those vehicles and buses, then, of course, you are creating unemployment for all those people. So that is our biggest worry, actually, as far as the challenge of COVID is concerned. And then, of course, also the fact that with COVID, in a way, actually, you are diverting money from other programs, actually, to COVID.
To health.
Yeah, of course. Because if there was no COVID, we wouldn't have spent, as of now, we are going to spend $500 billion on the vaccine. Now, that's money that ideally would have actually been used, for other development programs. But now we have to spend over almost $1 trillion on direct COVID interventions, leave alone the indirect ones. Yeah. So, in a way, COVID will, you actually end up diverting resources. So it actually impacts directly on development, actually, of the country. So, and that is our biggest worry as Minister of Finance.
Patrick, I know that we are going to be realistic here, but are we saying doom, doom, doom? One time when they locked down the first time, we did stories and programs, doom, with the word doom, and President came out and said, stop the doom. But realistically, is it doom, 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 Patrick? No revenues, debt situation. Really. Is it all going down, business are closed? Can we find some resilience somewhere?
Okay. I think it's not all sad as we could paint. There are some positives that are coming courtesy of COVID. Because of COVID, we had to reflect and look inwards. There are certain goods that we used to import that now as a country we are producing locally.
True.
So that means there's a positive that COVID brought. COVID pushed us so hard that we had to reflect and start import substitution industries, which is a positive. And these industries have multiplier effects. Apart from them paying taxes, they equally employing Ugandans, which is a positive and it's helping reduce on our trade deficits. So there are also sectors that have benefited within these COVID situations. People who are into agriculture, they've been in position to produce much food. And this food, they are exporting also across the region. So it's not, to me, it's not absolutely doom. There are certain things that COVID brought, because the positive check that COVID brought on board, government has also got an opportunity to improve on certain services.
I agree,
Because initially, all our regional referrals didn't have a functioning ICU. But courtesy of COVID, we have seen ICUs being set regionally, which is fine.
Human development.
Yes, because had COVID not struck, I don't think Ministry of Health was going to move at that pace to set up these units across the country. So I don't think it's all doom. There are certain positive elements that COVID brought on board that we need to appreciate.
Yeah. Okay. And I think I wanted to add to that point because there are definite opportunities that have come up as a result of COVID. And I think what many of our countries need to do, countries in our kind of situation, is to ensure that you sustain. Because you see, in most countries, developing countries, we are largely short term. So you end up actually going back to where you were without using this experience. Because we have started producing certain products which we are not producing. Absolutely. So we need to sustain that actually and go to the next step. We have started taking advantage of all these digital platforms. So you need to continue now using that actually, you know, engage deeper in a higher level digital, you know, transformation. So there are some things, there are opportunities we are getting. So for me, the key question is, of course, depending on when post-COVID will happen. Post-COVID, can we ensure that all these things are now sustained? It has established some bit of order as well.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that there is a curfew at 9 p.m., you know, and bars are closed, forget about the other aspect of bars, but it allows people to have sufficient time to rest and then become more productive. Because productivity is a function of the energy, you know, and how you are using your energy.
In your body.
Exactly, in your body. So there are many of those things. So the question would be, even when COVID ends, can we ensure that we sustain those things? Can we sustain order? Okay, like for example, during the first wave, when there was a lockdown, there was a lot of order in town. And at some point, actually, there was a move towards streamlining the public transport system in Kampala. Okay, which would minimize, you know, traffic congestion, and you know traffic congestion actually impacts on productivity.
Absolutely.
So can we actually take advantage now of this situation which has been imposed on us to establish proper order, for example, in Kampala, ensure that there is a good public transport system, rationalize all these different modes of transport, and ensure that, you know, you become more productive. Those are some things.
Kenneth, you keep on saying we should. Yeah. Let me start with you saying we should. I don't know who the we is.
No, me and you as well. No, the point I'm saying we. I'm saying it cannot just be government alone.
I wanted to ask the question, what is the role of police? Okay.
No, it is all of us. It is all of us.
Because let me take an example you gave, Kenneth, digital.
Yes.
You realize that, okay, we're saying digital, then there's 12% tax.
Yes.
You see how policy can also be skewed and insensitive.
No, but by the time you do that, first of all, remember, as government, I still need some revenue. Okay? So I have actually made my assessment right, and I know this by putting this tax, it is not going to have a major negative impact. So it will help me to generate some revenue, which I will put in these areas, but it will also not undermine my policy of digital transformation.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have rationalized that.
Exactly.
Very well. We will come lastly to the question of budget efficiency, which we had appointed to discuss. But before we move there, we want to educate our SMEs, and I take it to heart that even when we have such a discussions about the budget, again, as we said in the beginning, we bring it down to what information can the viewer, whoever is watching us, use out of our discussion. So, I am an SME, I'm coming to you, Patrick. Things are the way they are. The programs have come, there is a parish development model, monies are going to be assigned the way they are. Where can I find opportunity in this budget? Do you see any opportunity for me in business in this budget? And we are going away from the doom COVID thing. We are saying, can I find opportunity in this document, in that budget coming? I don't know, what do you see? And it's a blank check, you can see anything.
Okay, if you were to look at the budget from the SME perspective, like, this is where the common person, the ones who are into business, are centered in. Yes, the budget has opportunities, because the first opportunity that we need to see, government is one of the biggest spenders.
No doubt about it. Not the biggest, in fact.
You see, it's a big, government is going to spend. So that means in this budget that is going to be ready on Thursday, there are already opportunities that we should prepare ourselves, position ourselves to tap in. Governments, they are going to have workshops, they are going to have trainings. All those activities that government is going to engage in one way or the other, has a multiplier effect, that a common person is going to benefit. That person who is going to supply food is going to benefit from that. That person who is going to offer transport opportunities is going to benefit from that. So that's one key opportunity that we need to service. So I think that has a huge multiplier effect. It will touch me and you. Everyone will be impacted once government starts spending.
Okay.
Another opportunity that we need to see, we need to focus on, which SMEs can also benefit. Let's look at the parish development model.
I was thinking like that also.
Yeah, there comes a huge opportunity with it. Remember, government is flagging the 18 priority commodities. Now, these priority commodities would require a complete value chain.
Can you mention some of those? You are giving
No,
reference.
those commodities are the known commodities that we have. There's coffee, there's cotton, there's cocoa, there's macadamia, there's rice, there's beans. Some of these are also food crops, others are cash crops. So like with that emphasis where they're saying we want communities to focus on those priority areas, that means we need to develop the value chain. So as an SME, you need to position yourself.
Positioning is important.
Yes, along the value chain. Where is your strength? Is your strength in providing the seeds? Is your strength in providing storage? Is your strength in marketing?
Extension.
Export? Or your strength is in, what could it be? Processing those commodities. So that gives us a huge window that we need to tap in. Because if you look at the financial inclusion, the revolving fund, there are so many entities that are going to benefit from the revolving fund itself. The service providers. So
the training.
So there's so much at hand that we need. So what is critical here is positioning yourself so that you can tap into those opportunities and benefit.
Before I leave you, I have had the word positioning, and if I was honest, I would take that away. If I'm an SME, I would write down positioning, but how? We're not business advisors, but how? I'll come to you, Kenneth. You know where the numbers are. How do you, Patrick, position yourself as an SME? Where do I start with the basics?
Okay. For you to position yourself, you need to reflect on what are you currently doing. Once you get to know what you are doing, then you look at the opportunities that are being flashed onto your face. Then, now that's where the positioning comes. Look at the opportunities that are available and what you are currently doing and try to match the two. Yeah. Because if you can't match the two, you are going to lose out because it's very competitive. Yeah. So you need to try to address some of the gaps that may make you not competitive to win some of those opportunities.
Kenneth, let me come to you.
Yes.
This budget, people think, as we said earlier, government is cutting, it's COVID, and yet it is an instrument which you intend to stimulate the economy. And people look at it amorphous, stimulation of the economy. And yet in there lies opportunities. You are the director budget. You deal with the macro, but also you deal with not quite micro, but semi-macro, somewhere in the middle there. Point out some of the areas where you see they are going to be spending priorities, and these are going to directly translate into business if somebody gets the contract. I'm not meaning roads, of course, but other things.
Okay, first of all, the budget overall is about 44.7 trillion shillings. In terms of the areas of opportunity for the ordinary person, I think the money which we provide that help to access capital is a very big opportunity for the ordinary person. And this is money which is in the Uganda Development Bank. We have now almost capitalized it to almost 1 trillion shillings. We continuously put money in the government program called Emyoga. We are still putting money in the Women Fund. We are putting money in the Youth Fund. We are putting money in Microfinance Support Center. These are interventions which we believe can actually impact directly on the micro, small, and medium scale enterprises, because in the extent to which they are able to access capital at a reasonable interest rate. Because one of the challenges, of course, that faces them is borrowing at high interest rates, especially when they borrow from the commercial banks. So what the government has now done is put these resources to ensure that people can access the money at low interest rates, so that they are able to engage in productive activities. So that's one key opportunity that actually arises. Of course, the second major opportunity, this program is going to, the budget is going to be anchored as one of the priority areas on agro-industrialization.
Absolutely.
Which he has actually talked about. Now, agro-industrialization, the fact that 70% of Ugandans still engaged in agriculture. We believe that that's a very big opportunity. And we are looking at agriculture now in a much more, comprehensive manner, in terms of the entire agricultural value chain. Okay, so everybody, in a way, has an opportunity. So if you are a farmer, whether you are a crop farmer or a livestock farmer, you should take advantage in terms of increasing your production. If you are somebody who is engaged in value addition, then of course you have a niche, in terms of value addition. You are somebody who is engaged in providing storage services, somebody who is engaged in marketing, in trading, etc., in processing. So agro-industrialization, the fact that government is bringing out, putting emphasis on agro-industrialization as a program, I think touches on the livelihoods of the majority of Ugandans, given that we all engage, 70% engage, in agriculture. And then, of course, many of these other things. At the end of the day, actually, think of the opportunities which are rising out of the oil and gas sector, given the recent events, of almost moving towards the final investment decision. The moment the final investment decision is reached,
part of which has already
the process, as you can actually see now, the process is moving on very well. You are talking of a local content in the oil and gas industry of over 20 billion United States dollars, local content, which is by law areas where the locals are expected to participate in. Priority areas, but specifically local content, which have been gazetted, for us, for Ugandans. That's a huge opportunity. And of course, the budget of 21-22 is actually coming at that backdrop, where we have actually reaching a point where now the final investment decision is in the offing. So people now need to think of, what do I do? What am I going to offer, to the oil and gas industry? Do I have a company? Has my company already, does it have the requirements to be able to
just hang around there? Requirements to supply. I was hoping one of you speaks about requirements to supply. It's very important, Kenneth.
Yes. You must. I mean, actually, that is also why it is important that you take advantage. Interest yourself in what is required. Okay, because you must have a company. Absolutely. And it must meet some basic minimum
registration,
TIN number. It has to be registered. It has to have a TIN number. I mean, even if you're going to supply food, to those companies in the oil fields, so there are some minimum requirements. All that information is actually available on the Petroleum Authority website. So again, this is what people are expected to do. Check on the Petroleum website.
Inform yourself.
Check, yes. And they have been running adverts. Okay, there is this local content. As a citizen, as a business person, what can I do to take advantage of all these resources which are going to come in the industry? Because if you do not, then of course somebody else is going to take advantage of those resources.
Okay,
exactly.
Very interesting. Viewers, we are bringing the budget down from non-technical, from technical rather to non-technical, so that you can see Patrick's earlier said positioning, and he gave a piece of it. Inform yourself. Kenneth has mentioned issues of positioning to be able to qualify. Government business requires that you qualify in some areas of basics, registration and all that. Otherwise, you may remain there lamenting. But we want to move on. I hope we have done our best here with the gentleman in the studio to tell you, okay, COVID is here, but there's opportunity also. Still in the budget, COVID notwithstanding. Let's move on. Patrick, raising taxes at this material time, is it we say government is desperate, or somehow they hope that let's increase them and things will work out? And this kind of question, I'm picking it from the citizen, the conversations I hear people talk. Why are they increasing taxes now? But we need to understand maybe what government thinks. We may not get it. Is it because they have they have no other option? You can't borrow every time. Or they are thinking, let's see, maybe it will all be well. What's your take?
Okay, I think for a starter, government needs revenue, which is...
There's no doubt about that.
There's no doubt about it. So once we agreed to that, then we need now to unpack what are the options government has. One, government can borrow. Two, they can as well raise taxes. So raising taxes, to me or to us, we believe it's something which is good. But the biggest question is, what are those taxes going to do? Because once we tag that question along to any tax increment, I believe each and every Ugandan would be at peace to pay tax.
Yeah.
So let's not look at tax as a burden, but let's look at, are we deepening the tax or we are broadening the tax? Because there are a section of Ugandans who are overburdened with the current tax regime, because we haven't cast the net so wide. We are only focusing on the low-hanging fruits, taxes which are very easy to administer, like the pay as you earn and the rest. So as such, the other Ugandans who are now getting the other burden from indirect taxing. For example, we are seeing fuel getting an increment of 100 shillings. So that 100 shillings alone impacts on almost each and every sector in this country. So you'll feel the pinch, whether you own a car or not. So I think taxes are fine, but we should put much emphasis on what those taxes are doing. So if government can come out clear and say, yes, this is the tax that we want.
This is what your money does.
And this is what your money does. I think no one will oppose taxes. Yeah, so there's so much that we need to do. Really, government needs to come down and explain to the ordinary citizen what their taxes are doing.
But Patrick, the timing. They have, taxes will always move
Okay,
up sometimes down. The timing. There's this thing, COVID, we have just discussed it. And I am limping. I'll give you an example. This company restructured. People lost jobs. They cut back and said, we cannot afford you people. So some of you go. And now again, they have to pay some other levies, like 12% in data. People think it's on the phone. It's on the overall data. If your NTV uses data, we have to pay 12% over the total annual cost of data. We have to go up by 12%. And in other areas, we have a fleet of cars, and we have to, add 100 shillings on every liter, multiply that, and you see the cost going up. So my issue is not taxes, it's the issue to timing. And I asked the question, is it desperation, and we can understand that, or maybe things will be okay, these companies will manage? If faith, if you like.
Okay, I don't think the timing is bad as such. We shouldn't really be so much pessimistic on what government is doing in terms of taxes. The question we should be really looking at is broadening the tax base, not narrowing it down, because like
age-old animals.
Yeah, if we could get as many Ugandans into the tax bracket, the timing of these taxes
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. The issue is how many Ugandans, because if you look at the tax register, I think only it's around 1.5 million Ugandans who on the tax. But look at how many able Ugandans who could have been contributing directly to the tax bracket and they're not in. So let's focus more. If we could really...
They give a figure 12 million, I think.
If we could really empower URA so that like they can really cast that basket. The net really has to be wide so that we bring as many Ugandans as possible in the tax bracket. So that we don't feel the pinch that much for the few that are already paying the taxes directly. No, the pinch is more direct than indirect.
Yeah, for us who pay as you. And Kenneth, I know I asked this question to you, but for them, they are just implementers. Even I know. The charge is cascaded from somewhere above, somewhere in your office and your neighboring offices. Tell us, from your standpoint as Minister of Finance, how could you raise taxes now? Couldn't you wait maybe next year when things are better? This is the common Wananchi question, citizen.
Now, if you look at the coming budget, and particularly the revenue strategy underpinning the budget, it is actually not anchored on the increasing taxes. No, the main anchor for the revenue of next year
Yeah.
is actually improving efficiency of the Uganda Revenue Authorities. So
Okay.
we have actually provided resources, and I'm sure you have actually seen, you are even advertising to make additional recruitment.
Yeah, many jobs actually.
Many, yes, to recruit more people because they need the human resource, but they also need to improve their systems.
Yeah.
So for us, actually, that's the main anchor. But of course, that aside, we had to put some additional tax measures, of course, on a few items. Of course, as we all know, one of the key principles of a good tax system is equity. So we are mindful of the fact that wherever we have actually put an increase,
Yeah.
it remains equitable. I mean, whether it is in fuel, whether it is in, on data, on the internet, it is. So we know that it's not going to impact unduly, on the population. But at the same time, it will help government, to raise revenue, which we definitely need. Because as we discussed earlier on,
Yeah.
one of the key challenges, of course, of COVID is also, suppressing our revenues, our domestic revenues. So we need revenue, because short of that, then we'll actually end up, borrowing more, taking loans, which would, of course, worsen our debt situation. So improving efficiency is actually the cornerstone of our revenue strategy for next financial year.
Let me hang on you for efficiency. It's an English word that people may get, okay, what does it mean?
Yes.
In a few minutes, just break down a little bit when you say improving efficiency, maybe on URA side.
Yeah.
What are we talking about, and how does that translate in reducing the tax burden on me? If efficiency is,
It reduces the tax burden on the few people that are now paying the tax, because it will help to broaden
okay.
the tax base.
Okay.
By ensuring that more people are able to pay the taxes. Look at the new policy of the electronic receipting system.
Yes, IFRS.
Yes, exactly. There are many people who are not declaring, the VAT and whatever. Yet the buyers themselves actually are paying. Exactly. So that's now not a burden on you as a consumer of the service.
Yeah.
You have actually incurred the tax, but the tax does not end up in URA. So what this system now does, by rolling out this electronic receipting system to more and more supermarkets and businesses, it will ensure that actually we widen the tax base, okay, and ensure that whatever tax is paid by the consumer ends up in URA. So there are many examples of that sort. I mean, look at the tax stamp, which is also good actually even for improving standards of the products that we consume. But we will ensure that now URA is able to tell, the actual production of the goods and services, in these industries, so they can pay the excise duties and, all the duties which they are supposed to be paying.
Okay.
So, expanding the tax base is very, very critical for, as part of the strategy of improving efficiency of URA.
And part of
So
the
they
spirit
should
of the
reach-
budget, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, the first question. Now we are going to wind up with the issue of budget efficiency. It sounds academic and technical,
Yeah.
but it's not. We're going to unpack it, Kenneth. Budget efficiency. What is that thing? And what's the so what? The citizen is saying, now they're going into their things. No, hang on.
Yeah.
He's going to break it down. Budget efficiency, what are we saying?
Okay. I think first of all, of course, put simply, budget efficiency, we are looking at it in terms of the extent to which the budget allocations and expenditures reflect the priorities of the government. And then, of course, eventually, how it helps government to achieve its objectives, to deliver, either the goods and services, and of course, eventually achieve its development objectives. That's what we mean, because you have provided these resources. If you provide resources, and the resources are not actually allocated
Properly.
to your priorities properly, then right from the beginning, you have a problem. There is no way you can claim that you have an efficient budget if the allocation of the money is not reflecting your national priorities. So if I quote another person, that's what we need to understand. So if our priority is education, okay, as a country, you have to ensure that the resources as much as possible are provided to education. That is really the minimum. Then, of course, once you have done that, the next question is, how are these resources used? Because you can actually achieve the first category, which in economics we call allocative efficiency. But as long as the monies are not properly used, which is now the next level, technical operational efficiency, then actually you are not achieving efficiency. So when we talk of efficiency, we look at, those are the two key aspects actually that one needs to look at. How is government allocating its, where is government putting its money?
Yeah.
Is it putting the money in the things which are fundamental for the development of the Ugandan economy and our socio-economic transformation? But once the money has been put there, do we have sufficient mechanism to ensure that this money is properly used?
It's a key question
If
for
you
the
achieve-
citizen.
Yeah, exactly. So if you achieve those two, then definitely you are achieving budget efficiency. Yes.
Patrick, CSO, civil society. Kenneth has explained the conceptual. Allocate money where it must go. Maybe backed up by research, not just policy.
Yes.
Now, the next level, the efficient use of it where it has been deployed. Are you happy? How can you rate us thus far in that area? And you feel free to give examples so that the citizens get it.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to now the operational efficiency, once the allocative part is done, now here we are focusing on the efficiency in delivery of services now. Yes, it's a two-way. I can't say we are, as civil society organizations, we are really extremely happy when it comes to delivery of services to the citizens, because there are certain gaps that we get to see when government is delivering services. Let me give a case in point, the absorption capacities of MDAs and projects in this country. Ministry of Finance allocates resources to ministries, departments, agencies, and local governments to deliver services. However, when the financial year is coming to an end, or when the Ministry of Finance carries out the budget performance, the semi-annual budget performance, when their report is out, or the annual budget performance report is out, the surprise that we citizens get is like not all these MDAs absorb their monies. Remember,
when you say absorb, you mean use.
Use. Yes.
Use.
You see, they have already allocated money for a given function. But now when it comes to spending, using the money,
okay, I get it.
not all that money is absorbed. For example, let's look at...
Is that a problem we are saying?
Yeah, it's a problem.
It's a problem.
It's a huge problem that if it's not addressed, we don't get to benefit.
No, I get it.
Yeah, because assuming a ministry was given maybe money,
$1 billion shillings.
$1 billion. And by the time they're doing out the semi-annual performance review, Ministry of Finance gives the percentage, like this is how much we release to that ministry. And of that, this is how much that has been spent.
They have spent 50%.
50%. So you have 50% left. The question is, why didn't you absorb to 100%? There are so many challenges that comes in. For example, delays in procurements.
Yes.
That affects this
I don't
absorption.
get paid as a supplier.
Yes. So at the end of the day, you find these departments incurring so much arrears because they didn't fully absorb the money. Money has been provided for, but they're not fully utilizing. So this, in one way or the other, affects that operational efficiency. Now, even that comes into projects, public investment management. We borrow, government allocates so much money to these projects. However, projects are not performing so well.
Roads are not being complete as they should
In
be
time.
by timeline.
Yes. Remember, we have a set timeline when this project should come to an end. But now when you start unpacking, you really see there's so many inefficiencies. As a result, we suffer. Because there are projects that are running in this country that we borrowed against, but we are not already remitting money back. And
But
yet the project
is not there
hasn't
yet.
even started. So now that's where the issues are. The discussion should be centered around the how do we improve efficiencies in service delivery. Yeah. So it's something which is really critical.
Kenneth, you touched that issue the last time we were here on improving the efficiency at the delivery point. And that is something you're saying going forward, no project which does not show compliance, so to speak, gets money. But backwards, what are we going to do about the backlog? Money locked in there, not delivering, we are paying back debt. What's finance have in plan for that?
Okay, we have...
maybe fire people.
Yeah, okay, we have a two-pronged strategy,
Yeah.
like you are saying, because there are two key challenges normally. One is the readiness of the project, which is essentially the extent to which the project has been prepared and is ready for implementation. Then, of course, the second set of challenges arise during execution. And these are largely contract management challenges, if you talk about projects per se. Now, in terms of the first one, what we've done, we have streamlined our system now. So we are making it more difficult for unready projects to enter the budget, because we have come up with a very rigorous system of appraisal, okay, which different stages which a project must go through, okay, before it can be accepted. So by the time a project now gets into our budget, we are confident that this project is actually ready for implementation.
And it will go all the
now,
way.
what used to happen in the past, because that system was weak, we would find many projects, because we had examples of projects. You find a project actually has not been designed, if it's like a road, it has not been designed. Forget about the ones which are design and build, because they also design and you can do one which is design and build. But assuming it's not a design and build road, but it is already in the budget. So what does these guys start by doing? They start by preparing the designs. Then from the designs, they start the procurement. By the time actually they finish the designs and procurement, the first year has definitely ended.
Yeah, 12 months.
And of course, the money has not been absorbed. Now, what this system now is doing is going to help us to weed out those kinds of projects. We actually call it the gatekeeping function. Gatekeeping. So we are now strengthening the gatekeeper, the person who is at the gate, who is allowing a project to enter the government budget system. So that will help us to sort out that problem. Now, once that problem is sorted, of course, the other problem now is working with institutions to improve on contract management.
Contract management.
Now, contract management has a number of problems. One, in some cases, it is the time overrun, which is what you are talking about. So when a project is supposed to be implemented in 1 year, instead it is implemented in 2 years. But in some cases, it also leads to cost overrun. If a project is for $1 billion, for some reason,
it becomes more expensive
because it is poorly managed, okay, you actually end up spending more money on the project. So we are working with institutions to ensure that we address that. But also the backlog you talked about. We have started a process of reviewing our portfolio, our public investment portfolio, to ensure that, because there are some projects which have overstayed their usefulness, if you want. So those are what we want is to identify them, negotiate with the funders, and stop those projects.
Okay.
And then, because instead of paying unnecessary, commitment fees and interest, we are better off actually cutting our losses short. So we agree. So once we have done that review process, we shall identify those projects which we think should be terminated. So we are better off as a country to terminate those projects. So those will be terminated. Yes. Then we'll continue with the projects which can continue. Of course, one of the other challenges we used to have, which to some extent has been minimized, was the issue of counterpart funding.
Yes.
Because when you borrow, many of these lenders, there's a requirement that you provide some money from the government.
The government does
Uganda.
provide some part.
Exactly. So as part of that, we have come up with a new screening system, okay? And that's one of the criteria. We must comfort ourselves that as Ministry of Finance, as an institution, we are able to finance, to provide the counterpart funding for this project.
Lest?
If we are not, then we delay you. We delay the project, we can do it in the following year.
Okay.
Instead of contracting a project, and yet you are not able to execute and absorb the resources, and then of course you end up paying unnecessary, fees, penalties on account of the project. So those are some of the things. But of course it also entails strengthening the whole performance management system, which I think ties in with what is happening in terms of rationalization of institutions.
Okay.
Because rationalization of institutions cannot just be an end in itself. Because if you want to make government efficient, definitely you have to rationalize the institutions, ensure you remove the duplication, but also you have to look at the performance of the individuals, the people who remain in those institutions.
Because you might remain with the old problem.
Exactly. So are these people actually performing? Because removing the duplication, streamlining the institution is good, but it's not enough.
The individual.
So this rationalization is also going to look at the performance of the individual. That's why Ministry of Public Service, they also talk about even the pay reform program. Because also the performance of the individual is also tied to his pay. And that's why they said, okay, yes, there are these agencies where the pay is so big, there's a huge disparity between the pay across different institutions of government. Let's rationalize and ensure that we have eliminated duplication, but we can also improve on the pay so that we get better performance, and we hold these people, you know, on performance targets, so that they are given targets, and if they are not performing according to targets, then you get rid of them. So I think those are some of the things which government is going to do to ensure that we improve. But also I wanted to make the point, absorption actually over the years has improved tremendously, tremendously, whether it is on projects, whether it is on the recurrent budget of the government. 5 years ago, on externally funded projects, there's a time when we absorbed 30% of the money.
70% just there.
Yes, 70%. At least as of now, as of the last year, we have started absorbing almost 70%.
You have flipped the number.
So we have flipped the coin. So we believe that actually we are moving. So we want to use that to ensure that we can. Of course, we want to absorb 100%. Because
it should be.
The fact
it's not
is,
an ideal. It should be.
Yes,
100%.
it should be. Because whatever you put in the budget is supposed to be absorbed.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not that you put, when you buy a project, it has a work plan. Okay? So what we are talking about is the money to be absorbed in a particular year as per your work plan. So whatever is put in that work plan of a year, ideally should be. So for now, we are absorbing about 70%.
Okay.
But we want to see that number increasing, you know, towards 100%. And that's when we will actually be happy that we have created that system now, you know, which is, you know, efficient.
And still about efficiency, we have 5 minutes left. And I'll give you each of you 2.5. Corruption. It seems the new priority. And I know Kenneth's ministry was mentioned by His Excellency. Patrick, in 2 minutes. How should it be tackled? It's an old problem. What should be the new tone of the new impetus, as the head of state said, on corruption? Quick take.
Okay, I think for corruption, for us to really weed it out, I think that two critical
greatly
things
minimize it.
Minimize. One is mindset change. You know, there are so many people who pride in corruption because they see what corruption has done in society. Someone loots public funds, and the next day he or she is putting a very big arcade within the community. And yet we are the same people who cheer to it. Because we cheer like this person, that same person even goes to church and offers a huge donations, and the church also supports. So basically, where we need to put emphasis is mindset change. We need to preach within our society. How can we change our mindset?
And there's money to mindset change.
And there's ready money for mindset change in the budget. So once we preach that so loudly, I think we shall with time achieve it. Second, we need to strengthen our institutions. You see, we have all these anti-corruption institutions. We have even one in the office of the president. However, these institutions are not biting so hard. We need to strengthen them, make them so powerful, so that once a case is brought on board, we clear it as fast as possible. But you find someone is in the anti-corruption court and is stagnant there for almost 2-3 years, and the case is not being closed. So these institutions are weak. We need to recruit personalities to run and manage and adequately finance these institutions so that they're in position to carry out their mandate.
Kenneth, lastly to you, this animal undermines your allocation and everything else. From where you sit at the top, what's the best way to approach this animal this time around with the head of state behind it as a priority?
No, of course, like my colleague has said, you need the anti-corruption institutions, you need them strong, you know, all those oversight institutions. But I think beyond the anti-corruption institutions, you need to look at the systems across the entire government. Because without systems, you're not going to address many of these things. If you look at developed countries, because at times there is a perception that there is no corruption in developed countries. There is as much corruption,
but only less.
But they are constrained by the systems. The fact that they have very strong systems, it becomes difficult. And the moment you have weak systems, I can guarantee you, you'll not address this problem. So, you know, in my opinion, we need to look at systems across government. I'll give you an example. When we did the IFMS, the Integrated Financial Management System, at least even if you undertake, if you divert resources, whatever you do, first of all,
you will see it.
I will see it because I have a system. But imagine when we are doing a manual check-based system, somebody can actually get a check and just print money on the check, and or even when we were transacting in cash, it was much more harder than now when we have a strong system. We have, for example, we have strengthened our budget system.
Yeah.
Right from preparation of the budget. We call it the program budgeting system. So you have a program budgeting system, which is an online system, which is an automated system for preparing the budget. So whatever you put in the budget PBS, you cannot get it out. Then
And
from the
other people see it.
we are even after 10 years or whatever.
Yes.
Then from the PBS, it goes to the IFMS, which is for execution. So
Yeah.
we need to ensure that all these systems actually are strengthened and they are all integrated, whether it is the procurement, the e-procurement, whatever it is. So for me, systems strengthening is very critical.
Okay,
Then of course-
I'm being told 30 seconds.
Then, of course, sanctions.
Yeah.
Yes,
The biting.
there has to be sanctions. I mean, if you don't imply sanctions, then you cannot actually change the system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Again, we drove the discussion for the citizen because the theme is about the